goddesses, yogis, holistic creators, Primarily the gym, Prim Gym. She is an inspiration, baby. She is a peaceful, productive, positive information. And so we were talking about nonviolence, our ways to diffuse situations that have been challenging or aggressive situations, and what is the purpose of diffusing those situations, like mentally, spiritually, for ourselves. Like, so if you don't mind sharing, like you share with me,
yes,
a basic, like, when someone is in your face, invading your space, and you will believe you would have the right, but they haven't quite put their hands on you yet. Like, but there's maybe some cursing or yelling. Like, what is the purpose of us not yelling or cursing with them, even if we're right?
Yeah, especially when we're right.
Especially when we're right.
Yes. So I'm gonna say some of the things that I said before. The context matters, because there's a place for violence.
Right.
There's a place, to defend yourself, or to defend your home, or to defend your family. But a lot of the times we escalate a situation, or we allow a situation to become escalated because we're allowing people to take our power from us, right? And so we were talking about the first yogic principle is ahimsa. It's nonviolence. And nonviolence is not about what's happening outside of you. That's not where it begins. Nonviolence is about creating peace within yourself first. The more peace that you have in yourself, the more peace there's going to be around you, the more peace is going to be in your world. So a circumstance where you have someone in your face and bumping their gums, and the challenge is that a lot of the times it starts with words. Right. When a situation becomes escalated, it usually isn't somebody just randomly walks up to you and decks you in the face.
Right. You know what I mean? Very rarely that happens.
Rarely. It might happen with, it happens. Don't get me wrong. And if you are innocent bystander, you know what I mean, and someone is on whatever they're on, they could be, a number of things could be happening in their life that cause them to just arbitrarily come to you, and without words and without instigation, physically engage you.
Right.
Create a physical altercation. And then that's a scenario where you have to protect yourself.
Right.
Period. Mm-hmm. But that's not usually how it starts. Usually it starts because somebody says something to you and continues to say something to you, and now you are emotionally reacting. You're reacting with anger, and my own personal experience is when there are certain things that are said to me that gets me upset. And I know when I'm upset, when I have anger, my physical response is my hands start getting hot and sweaty. My ears start getting hot. My face starts getting hot. My heart starts beating faster, and my breath takes over. My respiratory rate goes higher. And this is a normal reaction to anything that makes us afraid.
Right.
That anything that makes us feel like we got to protect ourselves. Mm-hmm. And if someone gets in your face and they're saying whatever they're saying to you, you're usually afraid. The truth is that's fear. Mm-hmm. In most cases, maybe it's a little bit of anger too, depending on what's said, especially, what we deal with a lot of the times, especially as Black women, if somebody wants to hurt us, the first thing they're going to call us is a nigga.
Right.
The first thing they're going to do is try to use some type of racial slur, because their intent is to inflame us.
Right.
So the question becomes, are you going to allow someone to have that type of control over you?
Right.
Are you going to give it?
How do we not, like, I don't want that control. I don't want to give them that control. So in that situation, you told me something that was paramount, and I'm going to use, when someone else is screaming, what do you intentionally do? Like, they're screaming at you. So what do you do?
Lower my voice. The louder that a person gets with you, the more quiet you should become.
I'm gonna try that.
Because, and I said this earlier today, if it's two people yelling and screaming at each other, and you just walk by and you see it, who's the crazy person?
Right.
They both look crazy. They both yelling and screaming.
They both look.
You on the outside like, what's going on?
Right.
Who's wrong and who's right?
Right.
But if you walk by and there's someone who is yelling and screaming at the top of their lungs, face red, and the other person is quiet, and standing there, the person who's yelling is clearly the crazy one.
Right.
The person who's yelling is clearly the one
The
who's
aggressor.
lacking.
The-
You know what I
the
mean?
lacking discipline, yeah.
And to me, it does two things, because you can create allies in this way, right? If I'm quiet and if I'm walking by and I see somebody screaming and yelling at the top of their lungs and their physical body is portraying violence and anger, and I see somebody just taking it, like, I immediately am wanting to protect the person who's just taking it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or at least to try to look out for them, where I'm like, dang, this person is... I see that the crazy person is the one that's yelling.
Mm-hmm.
The louder and honestly, most physical altercations, that's how they start. They start with a verbal conflict of some kind. Somebody said something to you that crossed you with their words first. It always starts with gun bumping.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So we can get past someone's words that are intended to hurt us and not allow it to hurt us, and not allow it, even if it's penetrated us emotionally, spiritually, whatever, we don't have to show it. So it's not that you stop the emotions, because sometimes you can't. Like, most of the time you can't stop how you feel.
Your emotion is, you don't need to control your emotion.
Right.
It's an observation. If someone runs up into this house right now with a gun, I'm gonna be scared. I'm gonna be afraid. That emotion is going to be immediate and a reaction of what I'm observing. You know what I mean? But then what do I do? What's gonna be my physical response? Now, if somebody run up into this house, like,
Right.
it's gonna be a problem, because ain't nobody supposed to be up in this house. So you know what I mean? So we're gonna have to react quickly. But again, if it was just you and I, and we're having a conversation, and you start getting loud with me, I'm not gonna start getting loud back with you. I'm gonna recognize that you getting loud with me is causing me to physically react. That maybe is making me afraid, maybe it's making me angry. And I'm going to recognize that emotion existing in my physical body, right? I'm gonna feel that my hands are getting hot, feel that my ears are getting hot, feel that my face is getting hot, and my reaction is going to be to give you the opposite of what you're trying to get out of me. I'm not about to get loud back with you.
That's what we have to learn.
Yes.
For sure, myself. So recently I just was tested, and I didn't pass the way a girlie should pass. I didn't pass the way peace and prosperity and grace and gratitude.
Well, and here's the
like
thing. You don't know how much you have grown,
not grown,
until you're in the circumstance.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you're blessed, unfortunately, universe is gonna bring you another situation like this and be like, okay, here we go again. What you gonna do with this?
Right.
What you gonna do now that this person is here calling you a nigga? Because last time your reaction was less than what you wanted it to be.
Right.
You know, and it's easy to be inflamed by someone's words and someone else's action. It's easy to give your power up and just be like, oh, we mad? Oh, we about to box? Let's do it. It's so much more difficult to restrain the reaction of a negative emotion, especially when it's anger or when it's fear. It's so hard, because everything in your natural being is, we have to protect ourselves, right? Like that feeling of your palms sweating and your ears getting hot is adrenaline. Yes.
Yeah.
That hormone is intended to, they call it the fight or flight hormone.
Right.
It's intended to get you ready to take action. So for you to not take action, for you to just sit in that emotion, is very, very difficult. It's the opposite of what you should be doing just naturally. It's a spiritual practice. It's a spiritual practice for you to get to a place where you're like, take a breath. I'm pissed right now. Like, I want to just deck this person in the face. They're yelling and screaming at me. Like, I'm in my own head. Because what you could be doing in your head is, I'm about to have to sock this motherfucker right now. Like, I'm about to box. Am I gonna hit him? Am I not gonna hit him? If they hit me, am I gonna hit them first, or are they gonna hit me? Am I gonna wait for them to hit me, or what am I gonna do? Right? You're already preparing for violence. You know what I mean?
Instead of preparing for
the peace. Because at the end of the day, you know, again, if somebody puts their hands on you, you have to protect yourself.
Right.
You got to protect yourself. You have to. But if they're just threatening you with their words and with their mouth, there's a space there.
So even with words and mouth, what I learned yesterday. So we can say something not intending it for it to escalate, but say it does escalate. And like, whoa, hold up. I didn't mean for this to go this way. I probably shouldn't have said nothing. No, I know for sure I shouldn't have said nothing at all. Right? So we can reflect on those times where, is this an opportunity for me to say something to actually bring a solution while they can receive it? Or am I going to say something and this person is probably going to take this the wrong way and it's going to cause more aggression, more fire, more tension, right? So me not thinking about if what I said, how she could respond and how it could lay out, caused it to lay out further. Cause it to escalate to something much further. And so whenever we get in that situation where our words got us in it, but we didn't realize our words are going to go that far, and now she's invading, that person, he or she is invading your personal space, what do you do then that you didn't already,
Right.
How would you diffuse it then when your mouth and already then got you into a situation?
You are likely going to have to pay for what your mouth put you in, basically, because you already plugged into it. And especially if it's, the context matters, right? Because if it's not someone that you have a relationship with, right, it's a stranger on the street who's coming at you crazy and you coming back at them crazy. Now you've engaged them. You know what I mean? Trying to reason. People are not rational when they're angry. Yeah. People are not rational when they're afraid. Right. Especially if they drunk mad. Right. You know what I mean? That part. So they're not going to be rational. So it's a waste of your energy to try to rationalize with someone who's not being rational because of their emotion. Now, if you have a relationship with a person, it's a little bit different because now, there's a connection there already. So the strategy should be, or the best strategy or most appropriate, I hate to say what anything should be, but what can you do is to let it cool off. Right. You know what I mean? Let it cool off. Hopefully you can silence yourself, because again, a person can argue with a person who's arguing back. Right. But if I'm just yelling and screaming and saying my point and doing whatever, I can just be sitting here. It's so hard.
And that's where we get caught up at. Yeah. Most of the time
we want to be like, no. Or you ain't not gonna say that. Or you're not gonna do that. Or you but hold up. What you said wasn't true. Or what you did.
But if we breathe and take turns, if you're able to get both of us calm, if we're both able to breathe and take turns and talk, yes. But if we cannot breathe and like calmly, or at least to the extent where we're not screaming and cursing and being aggressive, it don't have to be super calm when you are feeling these emotions, but just enough to get your words across where we're being received, then yes. But so the key is to just be quiet until we can get that point of proper, healthy communication.
Yes, when someone's loud at me and yelling and going in, I'm like, okay, they got a lot of emotion right now. Anything that I try to say, they're not going to receive it. Right. They're not in a place where they can receive. So, and if they have all these things to say, especially if it's bullshit, and they're in my mind, I'm responding like a motherfucker. Right. In my mind, I'm like, that's not what I said. No, you didn't. Like, yes, you did. You're saying that you didn't, but yes, you did. Right? I'm in my mind doing it. I'm trying not to let my face say what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? I'm trying to usually I pick a point that's not moving, and I'm trying to listen, but not all the way. And I'm just trying to control my own breath. And I'm being silent, because guess what? If this person has a million things to say, once they get it all out, they're going to be quiet too. And then when they're quiet, I let there be a quiet space for a moment. I'm not going to respond to you at all. I want you to recognize that you just been going and going and going for the last 6 minutes.
It sounds so good. We're going to get there.
And now you ain't saying nothing, and I'm not saying nothing back to you. And I'm going to create a space for there to be some silence. And then when I do start talking, I'm going to be talking real quiet like this. And I'm not going to be responding to what you said, because, again, you're not in a place to receive. I'm going to be using words that are intended to communicate that there's too much emotion in this dialogue right now, and we need to come back to it when we've cooled down. That's what we need to do. because we're not going to get anywhere with you being as hot as you are. And if you're as hot as you are and I'm not actively creating peace within myself, if I'm not actively practicing nonviolence in myself, then I'm going to let your fire catch my fire. You can't fight fire with fire. You're going to burn the whole place up.
True.
You know what I mean? When someone is burning, let them burn out. You know what I mean? And let the ash settle and come back. If the relationship matters,
right?
Give it a space to come back to it. You know, there's a principle from the Gottman Institute about self-soothing, because it's painful for both people to be in that, especially if you have a connection with the person. If it's a stranger, it's a whole different set of circumstances, right? Because you really have to be sure that you're not instigating a dynamic with a stranger. And what happens oftentimes is a stranger will come say some shit to you and you're like, who the fuck they think they're talking to?
Like, and they don't get no mercy because you a stranger.
Yeah, because you're like, I don't even give a fuck about this relationship at all. So like, you can
that's
get
real
it.
Difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, to me, that should make it easier.
I get it.
Because I'm like,
I said that, but it's really easier because
you don't deserve zero amounts of my energy or time.
That part.
You're definitely not gonna have any
it's
power
like,
over you. Who the fuck are you?
Easier to ignore, but you easier to get it.
Exactly.
Right.
Don't catch me on the wrong day. Because the truth is, we're not always grounded enough to do this work. We're not always meditating enough to do this work. We're not always really working on our spiritual selves enough to do this work. And the time where you are presented with the situation to do this work, if you haven't been practicing nonviolence and peace creation within yourself before you get into that moment, you damn sure ain't gonna be able to execute on peace creation in that moment. You know what I mean? But when it's someone that you care about and you have a connection with, it's painful to have that type of conflict with somebody that you care about, whether it's a friend or a romantic relationship or a family member. Nobody feels good about arguing with their brother, with their sister, with their mom, with their friends, with their boyfriend. It always sucks. Even if they're right, even if you're wrong, even if you're right, it still doesn't feel good. So you have to create that space for you to go self-soothe. And I always say, when you have a big conflict like that, the thing that you should do is step away. Like, once you can get to a place where we both agree there's too much emotion for us to actually have this conversation, when you step away from that, go do something that will ground you. Go do something that is peace generating for you, whether it's reading a book or listening to some music or going to take a walk or whatever it is. Do a thing that's going to ground you so that when you come back and the emotion has subsided and you're in the space with the person, then we can actually talk with an objective. Because the thing is, a lot of times our objective in a conflict discussion is just to be right. But are you wanting to be right at the expense of damaging the relationship? You know, the objective should never be just to be right. That's not a good reason to be in a conflict with someone. You know, it should be, we're having a conflict because we need to have a conversation so we can create a boundary, or we need to have a conversation because something that was done, I need you to understand how it made me feel so that we don't do it again, especially if we have a relationship of some kind. I'm assuming that it's never your intent to hurt me, right? I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. So if you did hurt me and this is what's causing the conflict, when we come back, we need to have a conversation about it so that we can establish it doesn't happen again. You know, or sometimes we're having so much conflict that it's like, this is a conversation that we need to have just to talk about the fact that the relationship cannot continue. This is going to hopefully be our final conversation because it's like, look, there's so much conflict happening that we can't, this isn't good for either of us. For whatever reason, we aren't able to communicate in a way that is mutually beneficial. We're not able to handle conflict in a way where you can walk away undamaged and I can walk away undamaged. Like, every single time we have a conflict, we're not able to come up with a solution that doesn't make us feel hurt or doesn't make us feel harmed at the end of it. And I mean, it's a good way to figure out. I always say, I never will commit to a relationship until we can get through conflict. I want to see, like, I don't care about all the good stuff. Like, there should be good stuff in a relationship. What I care about is, how do you handle conflict? How do you handle a frustrated emotion? Are you able to communicate that you're frustrated? How do you communicate that you're frustrated? Can you do it in a way that isn't attacking? Can you share your frustration in a way that is not violent or hurtful or harmful or painful?
Right.
You know, do you
that shows your real maturity.
Yeah.
That shows your real capacity of discipline.
Because again, it's like, are you assuming that I want to hurt you? Or are you assuming that I hurt you, but that's not my intent?
Right.
Like, how do you look at me, and what kind of assumptions do you make about me when we have conflict? But it's hard. It's not, I think that's the most important thing to understand, is that it's not easy. It takes practice, and it doesn't mean go find conflict to practice. Right. It means take time to check in with yourself on, like, what are the things that make you uncomfortable? What, you know, this can happen all the time, because there's many.
What is our belief so I have to go back even further, like, what is my belief against conflict and correcting? Like, do I believe I'm supposed to? I really believe a piece of me was believing that I'm supposed to check you, like, I'm supposed to correct you, I'm supposed to, like, that's okay, like, you know what I'm saying? I really
it's okay to let people be wrong.
Right. So that's the first belief that we need to change. That it's okay for them to be wrong. It's okay for them to cuss at me. It's okay for them to call me a nigga. It's okay for them to say anything that's hurtful. That is okay. That's their right. It only turns something different was when they had physically put their hands on me after I made sure that, hey, it's okay for you to say what you want to say, and I'm gonna remove myself.
Exactly. And I wouldn't say, because I hate to say it's okay. I hate to call a bad thing. I call it evil deed good. Right. Because it isn't okay for someone to use those words or attack you with their words. But you can't control anybody but you.
It's okay for us not to physically respond verbally.
Yes.
Okay. It's okay for us to not verbally or physically respond to someone else's aggression.
Just because someone comes at you with some wrong, doesn't mean that you have to immediately be like, that was wrong.
Right.
You can let people be wrong.
Yes.
You know, and that's a lesson that took me a really long time to learn as well. Especially like, I grew up in a house, my dad is like right about everything. And even my coworkers and my closest friends will be like, Primley always wants to be right, like she's a know-it-all. And it's true, I do want to be right, and I think most people want to be right, and I do know a lot of things, so I be like wanting to correct people when they're wrong, you know. Mm-hmm. But I had to learn, you don't always need to correct people. It's let people be wrong.
And sometimes that's not even if you really care to teach them, like, hey, there is a better way. Like you said, when it's hot, it's not a good time.
Exactly.
Like when you
strike when the iron is cold.
That's
and it's not always big things. Sometimes it's little things. We had a race this weekend. And we were walking on the race, and we passed the mile marker, and one of the homegirls was like, oh, we almost done. We got a half mile because it's a 3K. And I was like, no, it's a 5K. It's a 5K race. And she was like, no, it's a 3K. And I was like, okay, I thought it was a 5K, but maybe it's a 3K. I'm knowing already it's a 5K.
Right.
But am I going to go back and forth to be right? And again, this is a small thing. This ain't, who gives a fuck what K it is? Like,
but
we out here enjoying ourselves.
Something else. Yeah.
Exactly.
If I would have been like, no,
girl, I'm telling you, I know, I read it in the book, I knew, I was living, right? That could have been an unnecessary conflict for no reason. And again, it's a small principle of, it's okay for people to be wrong. If you're right, what do they say? They say, the truth, your righteousness, your truth, it's sharp. It's gonna cut either way, so you don't have to jab it in and turn it in.
They're gonna find out.
Exactly.
Oh, it was a 5K.
That was exactly.
And then she gonna feel dumb.
She gonna feel dumb on top of, and then if you made it even worse, on top of her feeling dumb, now you made it worse, and now the relationship is damaged because you were so caught up in being right.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And sometimes it's, I give that example because it's a perfect example of something small that happens all the time, where we know that we're right, or we really, and the truth is, I'm in that moment, I was like, well, shit, maybe it ain't a 5K, and maybe she's right. You know what I mean? For a second, I was down my own self, and I literally had to, because I have this thought all the time, because it's something that I had to work on, where I'm like, it doesn't matter if I'm right, so I can just let this go. It's not a big deal, you know? And there are some times where it does matter if I'm right, and it's even more important that I let it go, especially when I see that the other person's emotion is getting caught up, you know? Especially when, and I'll tell you, When people are wrong and they're in their emotion, they're not going to hear you. It don't matter how right you are, they are not going to hear you. So just stop talking.
Even if you say it nicely, even if you're explaining to them in the nicest kind of way, if they are in their emotion, they're not going to see it. Yeah, I learned that. Shout out to my sister Erica. I appreciate you for giving me the practice with teaching. When someone's in their emotions, even if you're right, I just be like, okay, peace. Gratitude.
Just let them be. And the truth is, and why you want to have that type of grace is because you want people to have that type of grace with you.
That part.
You know what I mean? Because there are times where I've been wrong and I was sure that I was right.
Right.
You know what I mean? Exactly. And I was in my feelings about being right, and I didn't have somebody to give me that grace. And there have been times where I was wrong and I was sure that I was right, and I did have somebody to give me that grace. And you can imagine how different those relationships are now, even over time. Right, where I'm like, I recognize that this person, you know, my homegirl Krista that I'm going to Guadalajara with, like, because we work so closely together and we both have real fiery personalities like this, we check each other all the time. There are times where Krista will be like, I don't like how you talked to me in the last call that we had. Be like, what did I say? Like, how did I say it? You know what? You're right. I overstepped. I shouldn't have said what I said, how I said it. And vice versa. You know, when you start to be able to create that type of like fair, honest, truthful conversation where me being uncomfortable with my wrongness isn't going to be detrimental to our relationship, and you being uncomfortable with your wrongness, because when you're wrong, it's a real awkward and weird feeling.
Yeah,
and you're like,
so
oh, I fucked up, like I want to hide, I feel guilty, I feel ashamed. And the thing again, it's just an emotion. It's like a cloud in the sky. Let it pass.
Why does it don't even matter? A lot of times it don't be mattering.
It don't. It be the littlest, dumbest shit.
I'll be like, I'll rebuke that. I don't want that no more. I don't want that, Kayla. Just be quiet, let it go. If it don't apply, let it apply. If it don't apply, let it apply. What I say?
If it don't apply, let it apply.
If it don't apply, let it apply.
Well, at the end of the day, all of these principles are about creating connection. They're about having healthy relationships with people, with our friends, with our families. That's what we want. Like I said, nobody wants to have strife in their relationships. We want our relationships to, we want people to be gracious with us when we make a mistake. We want, you know, and for that we need to be gracious with people when they fuck up too. You know what I mean? And so when it comes to strangers, it's a little different because there's no connection there. There isn't a foundation for me to say, at the end of the day, I'm handling this in a way to protect the foundation. But most of our conflicts are not with strangers. Most of our conflicts are every single day with the people that we love and with people that love us. And we're just trying to find better ways to keep those relationships healthy. But it's crazy because it starts with our mouth. And
it starts with our belief system.
It does.
It starts with how you were raised, your values. It starts because it's before mouth, there's thoughts, right?
Yes.
So I'm thinking like I'm supposed to fight. I'm supposed to, if somebody come in my face, I'm supposed to correct them. If they say something disrespectful, I'm supposed to say something about it. But I'm not supposed to all the time. And I'm just now like seeing what that really means and why it really means that I'm not supposed. I don't always have to. You can be quiet sometimes. I can be quiet. I can let it go. I can let her feel how she want to be. I can let him feel how she want to feel. As long as they're not physically causing me harm, like or financially, whatever. Like
Well, and now that it's a practice that's in the forefront of your mind, universe is going to keep bringing these circumstances to you to make sure that you learn it. You know what I mean? But then you'll also start making your own observations as well, because you'll start to see from the very beginning of a relationship with someone, this is the type of person who's going to incite me. Right? Like I can't right away. I can't fuck with you. You're cool, but I can't fuck with you because of how you roll. Or situations, certain places that you're not supposed to be because you recognize that that's the space where inciting happens, where inflaming happens, and it's, the person that you're trying to become, you're already that person. Right. You know what I mean? You just have to walk in it and Yeah.
Consistently sharpen it, consistently polish it, consistently fine tune, because I'm already there.
Yeah.
It's just levels to being there.
Yes. It's a practice. It's a, you know, that.
Gracious.
This is why I love yoga so much, because it's like there's no end. It's just like life. There's no destination that you're trying to get to. It's constant evolution and constant improvement and constant practice. And some days are better than others. The minute that you should think like, I got this, a situation comes up and you're like, well, damn, I guess I didn't have it after all. Like,
well, just remember I'm glad I got this.
Yeah.
Let's come back and reflect. So
yes.
gratitude. Gratitude. So peace and prosperity, guys and goddesses. Prim the gym, someone that is inspiring and motivating to me. She's a very, she's a spiritual advisor for sure. She's
I feel the same way about you. I do.
Well, it's levels. Like I have perspectives where I can give. I have beliefs where I can give higher perspectives, and she has a lot of beliefs where she can give higher perspectives as well. So we appreciate this healthy balance, and I hope y'all have someone that y'all can connect to and grow with, who will advise you and guide you into other ways of thinking, so we can be elevated on a mental, spiritual level consistently. Because we'll be doing so good at it. Damn. There it is. But practice brings progress. Progress brings something like GoDLotusNyree, perfection. No. But peace and prosperity.